This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, recording. Go live with Token Engineering Academy. All right. Shermin, can you start your live?
The stream?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
So hello.
Hi.
We are just launching our stream. Welcome everyone to the track number 1 of the study season 2024 with Shermin Voshmgir. Yay! Happy to have you all on board to this session. This is the first live session in this series about the token design thinking framework. We'll have 90 minutes in total. We'll start with a tiny little introduction round and some logistics in the next 20 minutes, and then we'll dig into the content with Shermin. Let me pull up first some introductory slides to give you more information on where you can find all the course content, etc. So let me just find my slides. Oops. I'll be with you in a moment. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Okay, once again, the topic of this track is Token Design Thinking Framework, a structured approach for crypto founders, protocol designers, and token engineers by Shermin Voshmgir. She's the founder of Token Kitchen and author of the Token Economy book series. And this is live track. This series of learning sessions is part of the study season program. If you're watching the Twitter live stream, you can still enroll via tokenengineering.net to participate in the session and to earn a proof of knowledge for participating in this course and completing this learning program. Tokenengineering.net, register, and then feel free to join our Zoom sessions and participate. Now, in this session today, we'll provide you an overview on anything logistics, where, what, and how for this live track and an introduction round. Then we'll have a first overview on the token design thinking framework with Shermin for the rest of the session. And at the very end, we'll announce the winners of the Token Economy book series giveaway. We have 2 winners who won 1 book each. Stay tuned. This will be at the end of the session. Okay, what, where, and how? Generally, the structure of this live track, of this course, is we'll have meetings every Friday this time, 5 p.m. UTC. We'll have async discussion. So you're all invited to Discord. We'll be there in a moment. This is an open schedule. Work in teams, collaborate, discuss, organize yourself, be reasonable about time zones, but you are invited, and we'd like to encourage you to continue the conversation, to continue the discussion, and also to work on homework assignments on Discord, to collaborate. There will be 1 final homework assignment towards the end of the course, and based on the review, you'll receive an NFT proof of knowledge to prove your knowledge acquired in this live track. Okay, some words about culture and values. On our Discord, you can find the community guidelines. It's important. I mean, let's be friendly, let's support each other, and be proactive. So in case you have to solve issues, can't find learning material, reach out to fellow students. Our motto is give and get. So there's plenty to share. There's plenty of stuff we can do together, also in working cross-disciplinary. And don't hesitate, don't wait for instructions. You are most welcome in spinning your own learning group or in continue working on the content after the session. Yeah, feel free to schedule learning sessions with your fellow students in your time zones. Also, we'll record all these live sessions with Shermin, so you can watch the recording again. And of course, there are no stupid questions, no matter if here on Zoom or on the Discord, really ask away. And of course, be mindful when asking for support. Praise, say thank you. Everybody is happy with being praised in case you receive support, and give back. You can earn NFTs. I've mentioned this. TE Academy has established a system of NFT certificates. These are tokens, non-fungible tokens, non-transferable tokens also on the Optimism chain. And you will be eligible to mint one for completing this live track based on a homework assignment. And we'll provide more information in the course of the session, so no worries. We'll have a final deadline end of June to mint these certificates, but we'll let you know in time. So again, just stay tuned. And your core central place to find all information about this live track is the Notion, and let's share the Notion also for a moment to show you around. Just have to find my window again. Yeah. So this is the study season information hub. It's a Notion page. You will have access to it. You can find it on Discord. And we can also drop the link to the chat again with all the links to the program overview, to all the live tracks, and in particular to Shermin sessions. You'll also can add the calendar with all live track sessions to your own calendar to not miss any sessions. Again, Shermin sessions are on Fridays, 5 p.m. And in this subsection, you'll find all information about this track 1, Token Design Thinking Framework, the calendar link again, the Zoom link for joining the sessions, the session recordings, all live track dates, also already the homework due date, Friday, May 24th, information about the NFT certificate, information about the course, and we'll add more materials like sharing slides, sharing links as we go, just continuously. So whenever you look for information about this live track, keep an eye on the Notion. This is the central point of information. Now, let me just check. Yeah, that's basically it regarding logistics. And now I would like to start with a brief introduction round. Of course, we'd like to get to know Shermin. And then we'd also like to get, at least some of you get to know each other. So I'd ask you to switch on your mic and say some words about yourself, your background, what brought you here, maybe what you already know about the Token Economy book series. But before we do that, I'll want to welcome Shermin again. Shermin, it's great to have you here for this live track. And please say some words about yourself, about your journey in token engineering.
It's been a long journey. I think I will be speaking, telling you bits and pieces of my journey along these 4 sessions. So thank you for inviting me in the first place. It's really a pleasure to be here and be able to share this kind of knowledge in a format that is adequate. Usually I only have like half an hour or 1 hour to share very complex kind of topics, and I'm very grateful that we have these 4 different sessions to build up the knowledge because we will be using this first session, this is not my intro now, to kind of get to know each other now, and then also make sure that we all when we're using certain terminology, we refer to the same thing and we have the same know-how level. And then we will deep dive starting next session. So a few words to me. My crypto journey started in 2015 in Berlin when I started the Blockchain Hub. Back then, I think Blockchain Hub was the first website that provided non-technical information about kind of Web3, blockchain tokenization, and all things the techno-socioeconomic aspects of this new internet. And this is also where we met, when we met around that time, Angela. And yeah, I later went on to create the Research Institute for Cryptoeconomics in Vienna. The aim was to have an interdisciplinary research hub on the intersection of practitioners and researchers. And we were, I think, the first, at least of its size, to back in 2018 to with this interdisciplinary approach. Today, I'm in Portugal. And together with my partner, we're setting up a data-driven research farm where we're trying to tokenize agricultural assets, kind of the public goods, create new revenue streams for public, kind of the maintenance of public goods, CO2 emission reduction, water retention. Yeah, that's a different story, but yeah, this was, and I wrote the book Token Economy. The first edition came out in 2019, and the second edition 2020, and the third edition is the series, as you said. And the first two were published. I'll tell you more a bit later, and the third will be coming out. So I'm eager to hear more about you guys, what your background is and who you are and what made you come here.
Cool. So let's take a look. So we have a lot of people in the call already. Let me just select one or two. Cosimo, would you like to introduce yourself briefly with some words?
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm Cosimo. I'm based in London. I'm Italian originally. I've got an engineering background. I work as an engineering manager here in London. So I've been like in crypto for a few years. I read the token economy at a point where I really wanted to get to know people that were talking about crypto not as a speculation for good things. That was very inspiring. And then I actually it's very inspiring the fact that you're trying to tokenize which mean like agricultural assets and CO2 related, as I also had similar ideas as I have a lavender field in Poland also, and with my girlfriend we're trying to do something crazy around there, but different story as Voshmgir said. And so yeah, super grateful to be here. Great content. Also I did the fundamental courses like program. So thank you very much. I'll stop here. I know it was supposed to be brief, but
did you complete all the T fundamentals already?
The four out of 5.
Awesome. Cool. Advanced. Nice. Thanks for the introduction. And let's take a look. Who else? Wen, would you like to say some words as an introduction?
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Yes, everyone. This is Wen. I'm currently based in Hong Kong. I'm originally from China. I have a background in business and finance. Currently as a product manager with the centralized crypto exchange. I feel like I would like to dive deep into the more Web3 project side. And I feel like for every Web3 project, there is the tokenomics involved. I have no idea about it at this moment. So that's the major reason for me to be here with everybody to get myself immersed into this world and to learn more about this.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to meet everyone here.
Hello. CJ, would you like to go next?
Hi, sure. I got into crypto maybe 2021, but when I got in, I deep dove, and one of the things that I found really interesting was systems, cryptoeconomic systems that could be designed to reward all participants of the system. I bounced around a bit, exploring different areas. I'm extremely interested and hoping to learn from this course models that are in use or that can be used for this particular purpose. I have a couple of possible projects that people are asking me to help them to design a token to be used as a coin within their group. And that's one of the things that I'm looking into right now.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for the introduction. Natalia, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nats, Natalia. I have a project called Crypto Murals. I'm from Colombia, living in France. So yeah, excited to be here. I have this project to create a token, like a community token, to create murals around the world. So excited to join finally the Token Engineering Academy. Since 2021, I joined Ethereum Colombia also. I'm co-founder of the community of Ethereum Colombia. And yeah, I met the token engineering in DevConnect in 2021. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
you were such great hosts for the DevCon in Colombia, in Bogota. And we have met the Crypto Murals people as well. So it's great to have you here again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shermin, also for all the knowledge that you're going to share with us. Glad to learn.
Cool.
Thank you.
Next, David Zapata. Would you like to switch on your mic and say some words about yourself? I mean, no.
Hello.
Hello.
I am nervous. I do not speak English well. My name is David. I am from Colombia. I am a blockchain developer with 2 years of experience in yeah.
It's okay. Thanks for the introduction, David. Great to have you here.
Thanks.
Okay, and the final one, let me check. Carrie. Hello, Carrie.
Yes, hello. I'm Kerry. I'm based out of New York. I guess I got onto the blockchain a little bit late, after doing at least 26 years in the evaluating consumer products. I did read Sherman's book, the first one, in 2019, and I've also taken in past at least 3 out of the 5 token engineering the introduction. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Welcome on board. Now, I mean, it's so cool to have so many people in the call. We won't be able to have an introduction route with introducing everybody, but we've prepared a nice little exercise on our Discord channel. Let me share my screen again. Here we go. So this is our shared Discord. It's the TE Academy Discord, and we are now in track 1. So this is our place to be for all discussions around the token design thinking framework. And I'd like to invite you now to come to this Discord, go to this channel, and we have prepared some questions about you. What's your motivation, background, and skills to take this live track? And we have some predefined answers to just see who's around, who are you, what people do we have in the live track at the moment and throughout the course. Please indicate yourself. Yes, we get things going. Please indicate yourself via clicking these emojis. First question is, have you worked or are you working in a Web3 startup? All right, we have a lot of people actually who are currently working in a Web3 startup. That's great to see. Then are you setting up your own decentralized organization or token system at the moment? This is equally super interesting. I mean, it's not an obligation, of course, but it's interesting to see what mix we have So a lot of people generally interested, a lot of people participating in DAOs. That's also cool to see. And we have actually a number of participants here in the session setting up their own decentralized organization. Beautiful. What's your background? Okay, majority in technology. Not bad, but there's more needed. I mentioned cross-disciplinary collaboration. Token engineering covers topics from economics, laws, social science, and many other disciplines. And I'm sure we get to this throughout the course. And that's why no matter if you have a technical background or economics, law, social science, this is relevant for token engineering. And that's why it's very nice to see we have a good mix here. And last but not least, what aspects of token design or the token design process are you most interested in? The economics aspects, legal, ethical, political, and technical aspects, all of them, okay, all of them are pretty exciting, I must say. Cool. So thanks for indicating yourself and letting us know a little bit more. This will be useful also for you guys in case in the course of this live track, in case you have questions, in case you need some support, you can find each other with your particular skills, interests, and backgrounds to collaborate again or to support each other, just to let you know. So let's make this an active channel. And again, there are no stupid questions. All right. I think this was a great introduction round. And now I'm excited to start working with the token design thinking framework. The stage is yours, Shermin. Thanks again for running the session. Let's go.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me share my screen before we start. But before I share my screen, I would like to do some expectation management. So first of all, today we will not deep dive into the token design thinking framework yet. This will be the subject of the next session in 1 week, where we will really walk through the design thinking framework step by step. Today, we will be talking about, like, just to make sure everybody has the same notion of what is Web3, what are tokens, what can tokens do, right? What is the state of kind of technical, but economic development, and just to clear up some misunderstandings, myth, and make sure that we're on the same level. And I will also explain kind of the different, there are so many terms out there, cryptoeconomics, token economics, token engineering, it's all very confusing, and I'll try to shed some light on what these terms mean and where they overlap and where not. And then make sure that next time when in the next session, we can really deep dive with a common understanding of everything Web3, let's say. Okay, and maybe also for all those, I saw that there are many people with a tech background. I guess that you are mostly interested from what I saw. We have novices and people with a lot of experience. We have people with different educational backgrounds, many technologists. So I'm assuming you're very interested in the economic, legal, and non-tech aspects as well. But I also saw that some people are very interested in the technical design aspects. And even though we will be brushing upon technical aspects, we will not go into the details. So just to have this expectation clear that it's the focus, my background is in economics, and the focus will be and from an economic perspective, starting from an economic perspective and seeing kind of also looking at the legal, political, and technological aspects of the design thinking framework. Yeah, just to make sure that you're not waiting for deep dives in technology that will never happen in these 4 sessions. Okay, so I'll share my screen. Just give me a second. Okay, so basically how to design a token system. I guess the first question is, do we all have the same understanding of what tokens are? And if we look at the concept of tokens really is not a new thing. And for native speakers, the English language has used the term token to describe all kinds
Quick question,
of different...
Sherman. We
Yes.
can't see your screen, I think. Let's double check.
Oh, all right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I think I forgot to go and share screen. All right. So you should see my screen now. Is that?
Yes, perfect.
All right. All right. Enter full screen.
Mhm.
Right. So yeah, how to design a token system. As I said, the first question is, what is a token? And as I said, the concept of tokens is not a new thing. They've existed, we know tokens in different forms, like we've used different types of asset tokens throughout human history, shells and beans being probably one of the first ones, access right tokens like tickets, analog tickets, ID cards, casino jetons, any type of coffee machine jeton or something like that would be an access right token. We know tokens from computing. Usually they manage some kind of access rights. They can manifest as a QR code, as you can see in this screen, or as a parcel tracking code. But basically, computer tokens manage some kind of access rights. And we also know incentive tokens. This is not a new thing. They've been used in behavioral science, behavioral economics. Probably the best example of incentive tokens are awards programs, Miles and More, etc. These things are not new things, but Web3 tokens can represent all these tokens, previously mentioned tokens, can manage really any kind of right. They're rights management tools that are managed by a public infrastructure like a blockchain network. They can manage ownership rights, any kind of property rights, ownership rights, any kind of money asset from the virtual or physical world, but they can also represent access rights, voting rights, management rights, and more, like information rights, policymaking rights, etc. So these are just 4 examples, the most examples of rights that can be managed. Now, what makes Web3 tokens different? Because they are not centrally managed kind of computer tokens, but they are like managed by Web3 networks. Oops, sorry. So the difference between Web 2 and Web 3 is that access rights or any kind of rights would be managed by the centralized cloud, and the centralized cloud would be kind of owned in bits and parts by mostly private companies, the Googles and Facebooks and Amazons of this world, but also any bank services, the Wikipedias, etc. They could be privately owned or publicly owned, but they would always be centrally managed. So access rights are managed through a centralized cloud, and Web3 is different because access rights in Web3 are managed through a peer-to-peer cloud, and the backbone are the blockchain networks, but then we need different types of Web3 protocols to manage the metadata, etc. And tokens really are the main application of this new peer-to-peer cloud of this Web3, and but they can represent different types of rights, as I said. Now, these different types of rights can For example, if we would like to group different types of token classes, we could say this is a very simplified kind of classification of tokens. We could say that there is this group of asset tokens, and I would say that the asset tokens are what made, they're like kind of the gateway drug to Web3. It all started with cryptocurrencies, these virtual currencies that are native to Web3, but we can represent any kind of central bank digital currency, stable token, any kind of commodities or currencies of the real world can be managed, can have a digital representative like this kind of token that is managed by this peer-to-peer cloud. Assets can be unique. In this case, we speak about non-fungible tokens, whether it's specialized securities, real estate, specialized shares. Shares can be fungible, but we can have different classes of shares, and that would make them maybe more unique. Artwork, obviously, digital or physical. Energy has been so far a commodity, but if we look at different classes of energy that come with all the metadata of the provenance of energy, all of a sudden something that used to be a commodity can become a unique asset class with unique attributes because we have the information about where it comes from. But basically, any kind of media, etc., can be represented by a token that manages the property rights to these kind of fungible or non-fungible assets. Then we have what's in green, the access right tokens. Access right tokens can manage access to certain type of assets or certain type of services, tickets, subscriptions, sharing economy. But as you probably will hear also in the Ocean workshop, access right tokens can be used to have access to data assets, for example. So the data assets themselves would be asset tokens, but then you can buy tokens that represent the access rights to these data assets, for example. Tokens can also represent certificates. In this case, these certificates would be something like actually specialized NFTs that don't represent assets, but they represent the information about a person, an object, or an institution. It is a certificate for example, about what this person can do, a license, a passport, or who this person is. And then we have a class of tokens that represent, that I call purpose-driven tokens or incentive tokens, and they can be, their main purpose is to incentivize coordinated action within a more or less decentralized network of more or less autonomous actors. And we'll have a deeper look into that a bit later. So I think these tokens can represent different type of rights, but until now we've been using a one-dimensional view on what tokens can represent. We talk about currencies. In the intro round, I heard some of you talk about the currency for a group, right? I guess mainstream media and most people who onboard to Web3 for the first time think of tokens in terms of asset tokens only, or mainly in terms of asset tokens, simply because these are the first use cases that we have seen. But as I previously mentioned, I think that these asset tokens are the gateway drug to a token economy as we're tokenizing more and more assets, access rights, and identities of the real world. And it started with currencies. It started with fungible tokens, some form of currencies and commodities. And these tokens became more complex, more unique. And we started to see use cases where we're representing more unique assets, that are from the physical and a digital world. I think, though, or before we get to that, maybe one of the questions was, how does this increasing tokenization impact our notion of money, finance, and the real economy? And my prediction is, if we look at like financial markets before Bitcoin, we used to have capital markets, commodity markets, money markets, derivative markets, spot markets, blah, blah, blah. So these were the category for different types of financial assets. When Bitcoin came along, and as forks of Bitcoin emerged, all of a sudden, and all these blockchain networks had their own currencies, we had this new thing called crypto market, as if it like, so we're referring to these crypto assets as a special kind of asset class that is a new thing. But as we're tokenizing more and more aspects of our real and financial world, commodities, money, derivatives, we're seeing a tokenization of all these things. What is a crypto market if it's not everything? So my prediction is, and I think more and more people are seeing it, that as we're tokenizing more and more assets of the real and digital world, anything can be tokenized, and any asset that is transferable and can be traded can become quasi-money in a future, and we could enter a digital barter economy. So that's kind of the future of tokenization in terms, when you think in terms of assets, finance, and money. And I think here we have to rethink our concept of what constitutes money, what constitutes a financial product, and how is it different from the real economy if we have all these digital representatives in our wallets and we can easily swap them wallet to wallet and trade them and exchange them, at least the rights to the assets that might be physical, and that is a whole different story. I think when we look at tokenization, probably from my perspective, the most disruptive type of token that we can design are the tokens that steer some kind of organization. And these organizations have been called differently: decentralized autonomous organizations, DACs, whatever, nation states, coordinations. There are all kinds of terms out there for these distributed internet tribes that are coordinated on some kind of, by some kind of token, one or several tokens that steer collective action of, for example, a blockchain network, a peer-to-peer social media network, or a decentralized data exchange. And I think that we're at the very beginning of understanding how to design the complex kind of mechanisms for steering these decentralized networks. And if we want to understand kind of cryptoeconomics and kind of how to design these complex tokens that can steer kind of whole infrastructure networks, really need to understand Bitcoin. And I think for many people, there is a misunderstanding what Bitcoin is, or a partial understanding what Bitcoin is. Many people reduce Bitcoin to the currency and forget that really Bitcoin started out as a public infrastructure, as a public payment network that is collectively maintained. And as such, it represented and still represents a completely new form of organization over the internet, how we can organize ourselves. And Bitcoin, through the kind of consensus mechanism, proof of work, introduced a mechanism how individuals can be incentivized to, in a permissionless way, to be part of the network and contribute to the network, earn network tokens for their contributions upon proof of contribution to the network. And in this mechanism in Bitcoin is called proof of work, as most of you probably know. And these network tokens are minted upon such proof of work and distributed to the people who bring those proofs, or the owners of the computers who bring those proofs. And this is very different to how traditional organizations kind of create security and trust. Here we have top-down structures where trust is guaranteed through a legal system via contractual agreements, via registry, company registry. So you know who you can sue if one side of the contract didn't comply with the terms of the agreement, whether it's an employment agreement or any kind of purchase agreement or any other legal agreement that this organization has entered via its representatives. Bitcoin showed us via proof of work a mechanism where people who don't know each other and don't necessarily trust each other because they don't know each other, and they might be anonymous and live in different countries, can coordinate over the internet by downloading the protocol and just participating to the network, contributing to the network according to the network rules. And proof of work was groundbreaking in that sense and paved the way for a new discipline that today is called, among others, cryptoeconomics. And there is a lot we can learn from proof of work, but we still have a steep road ahead. And I guess this is why many of you are here today. I would like to spend some bit more time to talk about this concept of decentralized organizations or DAOs or coordinations or network states, all these terms that are out there. Think of them as distributed internet tribes that resemble more the dynamics of these distributed internet tribes, whether they're blockchain networks or a DAO that manages a stable token. They're distributed internet tribes that live on the internet, and the dynamics of these tribes resembles much more that of a nation state, the socioeconomic dynamics, and less to a company. And so these networks have technological components, and they have cryptoeconomic mechanisms, but it is kind of a socioeconomic network, because the computers that participate in these networks, in these coordination games, they're owned by people and institutions. And these people and institutions have economic interests to participate in these networks. So it is an economic system, but it's also a social system, because wherever people are involved, the interests are, the preferences are not purely economic, but they're also social, political. We don't only make rational economic decisions. And these systems tend to be very complex and hard to foresee how kind of dynamics evolved down the line, especially as time goes by. And we will analyze the complexity or kind of the implication of this complex system dynamics when we look at Bitcoin's use case in the third session of this kind of design thinking series. And I think it's in 2 weeks. If we design token systems that represent an asset, we don't have a very complex governance feedback loop. But if we design token systems that represent some kind of decentralized organization that might be more or less kind of centralized, where the actors are more or less autonomous, we always have kind of a computational constitution, which is a blockchain protocol or a Web3 protocol. And this constitution is defined in the beginning by people. They decide, okay, whoever the founders of the system decide what the rules, kind of what the purpose of the system is and what the rules of the systems should be. And they encode the rules of the system into the protocol that provides, and I don't know if you can see can you see my mouse? No, move over yes?
Yes, we can see
Okay,
it.
you can see it. So here you have the people, and in the future, computers collaborating to collaborative decision-making of how to create how to start up a decentralized organization. They implement the policies into a code, and this is the protocol. The protocol is the algorithmic administration of the governance process, right? So kind of automated steering and automated policy enforcement. This could be a consensus protocol of a blockchain network, or a complex smart contract that lives on a blockchain network and manages a stable token. For example, like MakerDAO is not a consensus protocol, but it's a series of smart contracts that manage this stable token. And this is the computational constitution that is automatically enforced by the participating computers that are owned by people and institutions. So here you have the public infrastructure. The public infrastructure could be a blockchain network itself, or it could be a stable token network, or it could be telecommunication network like Helium, etc. Now, you have different types of stakeholders, and in our next session, we will spend a lot of time analyzing the type of stakeholders that these decentralized organizations can have, because looking at the stakeholders is very, very important in the design thinking process. And the different types of stakeholders have different roles. They can be humans, they can be bots. And they have different rights in the system, but they might not exercise all the rights that they have. And eventually these people might decide to not participate in the system anymore, or they're like, okay, we need to change the rules of the system, otherwise I will exit. And if there is enough consensus in the social governance process, a new version of the protocol rule or a new computational constitution will be proposed. And if there is enough acceptance, it will be, kind of be deployed. And now everybody is going back to contributing to this infrastructure according to the new rules. So this is kind of the governance feedback loop. This governance feedback loop is very much controlled by people and bots at the edges of the network today, right? But as we're seeing kind of a lot of advancement in AI, I think it won't be long until we will see AGIs in different aspects of this governance feedback loop emerge. The AI, or kind of the algorithmic, the protocol itself is kind of, it's an automated part that has very rigid rules. But these rigid rules could be more adaptive if you have kind of an AI sitting at the heart of the protocol. The AI could sit at the edges of the protocol instead of a kind of stupid bots that optimize kind of the functions that they're programmed to optimize, whether it's like kind of a mining bot for Bitcoin, or any kind of other bot in a stable token system to buy and sell, trigger buys and sell actions of some kind of stable currency, or maybe collateral tokens. At these edges, these bots could become more intelligent. And as they become more intelligent, the dynamics of these DAOs might change as well. Bots could, be at the edges. And then the question is, how will this social governance process in the future be if the social governance process is now co-governed with more and more intelligent computers that help the humans decide what the protocol upgrades could look like, and how will the power structures between humans and more intelligent computers in such decentralized networks be in the future. So that's, I think, a very important question to ask ourselves, because we might see a lot of development faster than we might think. So the emergence of kind of these public infrastructure networks, blockchain and Web3 networks, has given us the opportunity to tokenize any kind of asset, but also revolutionize the way we coordinate, socially coordinate, and economically coordinate over the internet. And there are many overlapping terms, such as cryptoeconomics, token economics or tokenomics, cryptogovernance, token engineering that have emerged. And so what is what? And because very often people are confused, they use a random term, and more or less they overlap. And I dug a bit into the history of those terms and would like to share with you my findings. So basically, cryptoeconomics was probably the first term that occurred after Bitcoin was deployed, was casually coined, I think, around 2015 in the Ethereum developer community. 6-7 years after Bitcoin went live, when it was Vlad Zamfir and Vitalik Buterin tried, I think it can be attributed to the both of them, tried to find a terminology for this phenomenon called proof of work, this collusion-resistant mechanism, right? So they coined the term cryptoeconomics to refer to the design of fault-tolerant and attack and collusion-resistant mechanisms that allow stakeholders in an anonymous peer-to-peer network to interact in a fully automated way without a single person or institution governing or brokering their interactions. So kind of this was kind of what they referred to when they used the term cryptoeconomics. And they used the term cryptoeconomics because basically it is interdisciplinary on the intersection of cryptography, economics in anonymous peer-to-peer computer networks. And you could say that cryptoeconomics is the study of economic interactions in these untrusted environments where every actor could be potentially corrupt. Proof of work was the first kind of collusion-resistant mechanism. And because it was not scalable enough, a lot of alternative blockchain networks tried to come up with other cryptoeconomic mechanisms that were a bit more scalable, and proof of stake, and they worked on variations of proof of work, variations of proof of stake, etc. So this is a kind of new discipline. The security assumptions of these cryptoeconomic systems depend on the resilience of the assumptions made regarding how, in an anonymous network of actors, the single actors will react to economic incentives. It's always assumptions that we make. And how people react to incentives has been a field of study in economics, and in specific in behavioral economics, which so far, unfortunately, has found too little recognition in the space, but I'm seeing that it's finding more and more recognition in the space. And this might be due to the fact that this discipline has predominantly evolved in the computer science space. So I think cryptoeconomic systems, there is still a lot of space to incorporate knowledge from economics and political science, because unless at the edges of the network and at the heart of the network, everything is computer operated, people always have preferences that are beyond kind of rational economic decision making. And this is a study, a social science study in economics, a behavioral economics study. So as I worked in Vienna and was writing my first paper on this subject together with Michael Zarkam from Block Science, we tried to expand the definition of the disciplines related to cryptoeconomic systems beyond cryptography only and economics only. Economics is a very broad field. And we came up with this cryptoeconomic systems flower, as people have casually coined it, on the intersection of so many different industries, from industrial systems engineering, AI, optimization, control theory, computer science, obviously, and cryptography, but also psychology, decision science, political science and governance, philosophy, law and ethics, economics and game theory, and operational research and management science. So seems like a lot, but it is a lot. Yeah. Then we have the term token economics or tokenomics. This term emerged a bit later in social networks, token economics or token economics. It's less rigidly defined. It does not necessarily imply collusion-resistant mechanisms in a peer-to-peer network of untrusted actors. Yeah, as I said, it emerged on social media in the application space of a wider Web3 community. Once around 2000, also 15, 16, it became easier to create tokens with a few lines of code, right? And then any type of token could be created, and people with the few lines of code, but people didn't know kind of how to write this code or what these tokens should do. And this is why they started to talk about tokenomics. It's more a colloquial term, and it's very often when I read it or people speak about it, I feel that it's used to describe any economic design pattern for any type of token, from a simple asset token that only represents a kind of very business model from the world we know today that represents a simple asset or access right, to more complex tokens that steer any form of decentralized organization. Whether voting rights are part of the economic design seems to depend on the people who use the term. This is why I'm saying that token economics is very loosely defined. It might include the design of voting rights or not, depending on who uses the term. I personally feel that the term is reductionist because it focuses on the economic part of the design and ignores all other relevant disciplines. So I'm not a big fan, but it's a very colloquial term. Then we have a term that's bouncing around, cryptogovernance, very often just used, or governance of crypto systems. This is also very reductionist, and it's often unclear what it implies. In theory, Web3 networks are, in my opinion, planned economies on steroids. So it is not a free market. You have the freedom to join these Web3 networks and exit them at any time. But the market rules are highly centralized and planned. And they're very rigid market rules of who is allowed to do when and what and transact under which conditions in this system and how much tokenized rewards they can earn doing what. So this is very rigid. It's a planned economy. And the rules, as I said, are hard-coded into the protocols. And while people very often talk about cryptoeconomic systems or DAOs or Web3 as kind of completely free market, there is no, neither in the real world nor in Web3, there exists a thing as a completely free and unregulated market. Any market is more or less regulated, either explicitly, and even if it's not explicitly regulated, there are always implicit social rules to how people behave in an even very unregulated market. In cryptoeconomic networks, the market rules are very clear and very explicit. Participation in Web3 is, as I said, voluntary. So if your incentives, if you design a market kind of a DAO and you don't have the right incentives, nobody will join your network. Or you might have the right incentives in the beginning, but power structures emerge and your system will not be attractive for people to remain in the network. And we've seen it, unfortunately, with many systems. Many years ago, we had this quite successful decentralized social network called Steemit that was very successful for a while, but because the market rules were not sustainable and attractive for people for late participants to join the system, eventually the network died because, the market rules were not attractive enough. So governance in the end is basically it's a political science term that describes the general politics of a community of people. In this case, the community lives on the internet on a Web3 network, right? And the politics includes the economics interactions. So governance can never be separate from economics in general and in crypto in specific. So in crypto, very often people use the term governance to only talk about the voting rights in the network. But governance really is also about like the market rules. So which is, and maybe I'm getting lost in theory here, but it's, I think, important to say this once. Governance really is a more general term, and how voting rights are distributed among participants in the market is one question of governance, but the other question is what the market rules are. So I think that the term crypto governance is also reductionist, long story short. And why I prefer the term token engineering, and I think we have a meeting of the minds here, Angela. I think that token engineering is a much more neutral term than cryptoeconomics, crypto governance, or token economics, while at the same time implying rigorous principles and practices of engineering ethics. And for those of you who know Trent or who know Ocean, really I think the term was popularized by Trent McConaughey from Ocean. He once told me that he didn't invent the term, but he definitely popularized the term. And he wrote this very good article many years ago about titled Towards the Practice of Token Engineering. And he referred to token engineering as the theory, practice, and tools to analyze, design, and verify tokenized ecosystems. And the premise was that these tokenized ecosystems can deal with the mission-critical nature of Web3 networks. He argued that engineering is also a discipline of responsibility. And I think this is very important. Being ethically and professionally accountable to the machines that you build. And we're building economic machines, right? He drew similarities between creating token mechanisms and other disciplines that share a heavy dependence on mathematics of optimization and decision-making, and he listed a range of scientific fields that are relevant when designing these systems. And in his list, he very much also overlaps with what Michael and I defined, such as electrical engineering, swarm robotics, operation research, complex system design, public policy design, economics, robotics, machine learning, etc. So obviously, all these disciplines are quite a lot. To simplify it, I would suggest to kind of focus on 4 main areas, which have a lot of detailed sub-areas. Obviously, we have the technical engineering of a token and a token system. What system you want to create is never a technological question. Like, you always have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of the system? What is the political purpose of your system? What is the economic purpose of your system? And how can you make your system legally compliant, right? And then you ask yourself, I think the last question is the technical question, which blockchain infrastructure you build this upon is very often a function of what you want to do and how you want to do it, and all these economic, political, ethical, and legal questions, will kind of give you more clarity on which kind of blockchain infrastructure you will use, which kind of token standards you will use. And we will look at the details of these 4 different classes of questions during the design thinking process that we will look at step by step in our next session. I'm just looking at the time. We have 25 minutes to go, right? Okay. So when we think of token engineering, cryptoeconomics, I prefer token engineering. As I said, the technical aspect of the engineering process is kind of which infrastructure do I use to create this, issue the tokens? Which kind of security do I need? Level of security, scalability, privacy do I need, right? Based on the purpose of the token system I want to create. Do I create my own kind of blockchain network? In the early years, some projects used to do that, but I think most people are now using third-party blockchain networks as an infrastructure to create their own token system. The relevant fields here are obviously different types, computer science, specifically cryptography, smart contract languages, etc. Then we have, the order is a bit backwards here. We actually should have started with the last one. It's like kind of, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? What are the economics? How do I make it legally, kind of legally engineer it? But like, from the legal engineering perspective, the most relevant questions are, depending on the token system I create, the legal questions can be less or more complex. If we create a token system that represents goods and services that we already know, business models that we already know, for example, a currency, a stable token. Okay, maybe not a stable token. If we represent securities or commodities as tokens, if we tokenize art or real estate, the business models and the legislation of how kind of securities are regulated, how real estate is regulated, how the energy industry is regulated, we already understand these the supply chain of these assets and these systems, and we're now creating a digital certificate that we call token, and that's managed on a public infrastructure, but the thing that we're tokenizing is not new. So the legal questions, there are techno-legal questions that need to be resolved, but they are not as complex as the kind of legal engineering questions that might be related to creating a decentralized organization. The level of complexity of the legal questions that you will have to resolve is bigger when you're creating any type of decentralized organization, rather than if you have your centralized company and you're offering services for any type of tokenized asset. The questions that are relevant here are: what is the relevant jurisdiction? What is relevant regulation? How can you design legally compliant smart contracts, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, the fields here are law, regulatory law. Often it is depending on what you're trying to do, securities law, privacy laws, and different types of legal aspects will be relevant depending on the type of legal system, token system you're creating. Economic engineering will also depend on the type of token system you are creating, and we will walk through the different type of economic questions in the next session in detail. Relevant fields here: economics, all macroeconomics, microeconomics, behavioral economics, network science, but also cyber-physical systems. And then we have always the question of ethical engineering, because what you want to do always has a trade-off, political trade-off. the biggest political or ethical trade-offs in Web3, I think, are the questions around privacy versus transparency and power structures. Any system you will create, if you're creating some kind of decentralized organization that is steered through tokens, you will have power structures that emerge over time. And there will be a trade-off between decentralization, speed in decision making, and scalability and security, for example, on a blockchain level, but also in other kinds of decentralized organizations, there will be trade-offs in power dynamics that you might need to make. Another question relevant to the kind of ethical questions are transparency versus privacy. We have public blockchain networks are radically transparent, especially first generation blockchain networks, for a good reason, because we wanted public accountability of who did what in the system. Unfortunately, for many real life examples, we would like to have more privacy by design, but blockchain networks don't come with a lot of privacy by design. So we have new blockchain protocols, cryptographic primitives that we can use to create more privacy. But so these are the question, but there will always be a trade-off, and this trade-off is a political question, ethical question on the intersection with kind of technical design thinking of how you can, which cryptographic primitives you can meaningfully use to provide privacy while you're still maintaining institutional accountability, which is really important in Web3. Relevant fields of science here are political science, ethics, sociology, engineering, ethics, etc. So I would like to stop here, and because I talked a lot, it was a lot of theory also. I will promise you that throughout the next 3 sessions, we will go into details. It won't be as theoretic anymore. For those of you who are interested on this kind of, in addition to our 4 sessions that we have together, you can read more about what I'm speaking in the book Token Economy. The 2nd edition is still available, but a bit outdated because it was published in 2020. And I just published this new series, kind of the 3rd edition is a series of 3 books. The book DAO and Purpose-Driven Tokens outlines the design thinking framework, explains and outlines the design thinking framework that we will be speaking about. There is, in this book, DAOs and Purpose-Driven Tokens, there is a theory section where I explain a great deal about the history of DAOs and how DAOs will impact our kind of society or these decentralized networks, and what the meaning of decentralization is and where power structures can emerge. I outlined the design thinking framework that we will be discussing next week. And then I use this design thinking framework to analyze 6 different use cases: Bitcoin, MakerDAO, Helium, Rebalance Earth, which is a biodiversity token, and 1 other, and social networks from Steemit, and the reasons why Steemit failed back in its time, to Friends Tech, which is just emerging and becoming more and more popular. Yeah, so this just as an add-on, and back to you, Angela, maybe to the Q&A session. We don't hear you. You have
Let me unmute myself, sorry. Yeah, everyone, if you have any questions or want to make any comments to this first overview on the token design thinking framework and background on what tokens are, how can we look and explore token systems, let us know. You can drop your notes in the chat.
We have a few questions already in the chat.
Perfect.
So
yeah, let's take a look.
should I read them? Hello.
Yeah.
Somebody talked about, I think the first one is about Balaji. Yeah. Wait, the first question, this is Fabi, Crypto Go, hosting. No, there was one question. Who had the question with Balaji and coordinations and Primavera? I just read it.
Henrik, would you like to switch on your mic, Henrik?
Yes, you want to ask the question yourself, so I don't have
it was
to read
me.
it. Yes.
Yeah, Henrik here. Thank you, Shermin. Great to meet you. I was very sort of flabbergasted by Balaji's network state, and then I was really sort of, okay, now that was wrong. I actually tried it and failed with the network state with trying to get the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to give me an NFT passport, and realized that actually you need to earn it. You can't just grab it. So I agree with Philippa that there's something wrong with the network state, but the coordination thinking, I'm thinking probably beyond the DAO state. Where do you see this whole thing going? I thought you had some great perspectives, and I'm kind of like, where's that going in your mind?
I think the very confusing part, we're in a exciting but also confusing stage, because we're using different words to describe the same thing, or we're struggling to find the right terminology to describe this new phenomenon. So Web3 networks are so different from the previous internet, because rather than decentralized, I think we can refer to this Web3 networks or blockchain networks as the decentralized web. But decentralization is a very fuzzy term. What does it mean, right? And it's kind of an anti-word as well. And then the question is, what is decentralized? Is it geographically decentralized? Is it economically decentralized? And how decentralized is it? Because in any network, you have power structures, right? And this is something I analyze in the use cases, and we will be looking at one of the use cases at Bitcoin. I think where this thing is going, maybe it helps us to understand that they're collaboratively managed networks. So we have this governance infrastructure. Blockchain networks or Web3 provides us a governance layer for the internet. We can now collaborate much easier without knowing each other, without having legal agreements with each other. We have a mechanism where we can collaborate towards a common purpose. And this purpose could be a peer-to-peer payment network, it could be a stable token, it could be a social network. And then we can design more or less, and this is why I'm saying more or less decentralized systems, and more where you have more or less as a participant, you have certain levels of autonomy, and you could have more or less autonomy. I think in their design pattern, they're very similar to nation states. This is why I think Balaji referred to them as network states. But they are different in one way, because as opposed to how nation states work today, where the government has a coercive, can force you to pay taxes, to stay in, unless you emigrate, you have to pay taxes, you're subject to the laws, you cannot immigrate and emigrate easily. In Web3 networks, you can be part of the network and you can exit the network as soon as it's not attractive. So we can be members of these different networks or tribes, is maybe a more archaic term to describe these phenomenons, where we can coordinate towards this collective goal. And as soon as I'm not interested anymore to participate, or I don't have time anymore to participate or use this network, I can stop using this network in a much more permissionless way than the current analog nation-state systems or even economic systems allow us to do so. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I think we can take that offline for a couple of hours, but thank you for the moment. There's so many others. Thank you.
Okay, we have more people raising their hands. Alex Soto.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a question about tokens, and I need to confess my lack of technical understanding. I want to give the example of Bitcoin as a token that was, I would say, meant to be only for transactions. But now there is like an attempt to construct a layer 2 and to give other functionalities to expand in a way the expressions of that token. I also can imagine how in this category that you give, sometimes you can have a certificate token that can also work as an access right token or even as a contribution token in some way. So my question is there like a basic way of building a token that can allow more flexibility so you can expand those functionalities? Or is that like a complex way of working and you should actually design that from the beginning?
Well, I think it will become, we will discuss this topic a bit more in detail in the next session, but just maybe to quickly answer your question. So the Bitcoin network has only recently, through kind of a metadata protocol or meta protocol, adapted the idea of what they call ordinals or inscriptions to create some kind of, to allow the creation of other types of tokens that are transported or settled over the Bitcoin infrastructure. But the Ethereum ecosystem and similar ecosystems that kind of copied Ethereum have made it really easy to create issue tokens and create tokens with a few lines of code. And they have created token standards for different types of token patterns, or that you don't have to invent everything from scratch. The Ethereum tokens on Ethereum work very differently than other ecosystems, but many ecosystems after Ethereum have copied the concept of Ethereum with the virtual machine. They are similar, but Bitcoin works technically on a technical level very differently. They work with UTXOs and with this meta layer. But basically, Bitcoin is also getting to a point where you can create, issue any type of rights over the Bitcoin network and settle these kind of rights. But they still have a longer way to go. So if you want to easily issue a token, you can do it on Ethereum or other networks, Solana, I don't know, some other networks that are outside the Ethereum ecosystem, but similar to Ethereum. Yes. Does that answer your question?
Middle point, but I think I can wait for the next session and see.
Yes, I mean, as I said, this is not, you will not find technical answers. If you want to understand how to create a token on Ethereum, this would be a different workshop. But I will brush, in the next session, we will be brushing upon the technical aspects that you have to ask yourself. But it's really theoretic because there are so many different infrastructure networks already out there. And the question of, I think the first question is not, maybe let me answer your question differently. What token do you want to issue? This is the, like, what is the purpose? And we will go into this, deep dive into that. The first step in the design thinking purpose process, and we'll see that next time, is what is the purpose of the system you want to create? Not which infrastructure do you want to create it on, or how do you technically do it? This is one of the last questions you ask yourself. The first question is what you want to do, right? Unless you're a technologist, and you want to understand the different types of infrastructures and how they differ from each other, right? Yeah.
Okay, some more questions. People raised their hand. I think Gesa was next.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for giving this interesting course, Shermin. I would be interested to know what do you think, how many, looking at the Web3 landscape, how many of the organizations, startups are getting it right with the tokenomics, or how many should rather better take this course? So, yeah.
I don't think I know it better. We're still in a Wild West age of a token economics or crypto economics or token engineering. We have much more bad practices than best practices. And it was really hard for me, when I was selecting my use cases for the book, I didn't find a lot of best practices, simply because this is such a paradigm shift of how we coordinate economic action, and we don't have the best practices yet. We can learn from the failures of token systems that started many years ago. So yeah, more bad practices than best practices, but it's never also a binary answer, because for example, the 6 use cases that I analyzed in the book, DAOs and purpose-driven tokens, you can learn every system has interesting aspects, and every system has aspects where in hindsight you would have designed it differently. But because they are so, like, they were the first, paved the way towards these decentralized networks that are coordinated over tokens, they really, they didn't have anyone else to learn from, and obviously they made many mistakes. But we can learn from the mistakes, and I'm analyzing the mistakes I could identify. But we're far from having best practice design patterns, unfortunately. They're emerging slowly, but we're not there yet.
Okay, but we can learn from it. That's
we can learn from analyzing use cases in depth. Don't expect simple answers.
I like complex answers. Thank you.
Okay, more questions. Maybe we can take one more. It's Carrie. I think you should go next.
Oh, hello. Yeah, mine is more of a comment than a question. I mean, this was a wonderful talk, but when you were talking about the whole thing about governance and having a planned economy, you know, your statement about there's no such thing as a free market, that everything has to be, kind of designed and have a set of rules, really hit home with me. So I just wanted to say that.
No, I didn't quite say that. So I said in the world, I don't know of a completely free market in the analog world even. You have political systems where you have less regulation of economic activity. But even if you would live in complete anarchy, economic anarchy, because of social habits that people have, even if you don't have any in a system where you wouldn't have any explicit market rules, you would have implicit market rules that emerge over time because of social habits that emerge. This is what I said. I didn't say that either or is better. I'm just saying that very often people talk about Bitcoin or Web3 like it's complete anarchy, when it's in fact planned economy on steroids. But as I said, the good thing about Bitcoin is it's completely voluntary. Nobody will shoot you. Nobody would put you in jail for not paying any Bitcoin taxes, right? And that's the good thing about this system. This is the freedom that we have in Web3 to be able, because these systems, when they're public and permissionless, you can join and enter and exit at any time in a permissionless way. And this is the power of these networks. But we shouldn't think of them as free markets. So yeah, the economic rules are very rigid within those networks. That's the only thing I said.
Right. No, I kind of got that, but it's always in saying that even in, you know, traditional economics, that the markets are free, and that's never true, but you hear that statement all the time.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what I was comparing to. But thank you.
Okay. Now I understand. Thank you.
All right, may we take a final one?
I mean, I have, I don't know, I would have a bit more
half-past.
time if you want to extend the session for another 10 minutes for those people, just to make sure to answer a bit more questions. From my side, I'm good to go, you know, but this is your decision.
Let's say
Angela.
we have 2 more. Carrie.
Okay.
No, I forgot to lower my hand. I'm
Sorry. Then we have Henrik again, sorry.
Yeah, no, this was, I don't know if you're familiar with the Basel Committee, you know, the sort of central bank of the central banks, the lender of ultimate last resorts in the traditional world.
Yes.
They just published a paper about 2-3 weeks ago called calling for something they call the Finternet, which is the future of the financial internet, which is, I think, an extraordinary acknowledgement of distributed technology and blockchains and DeFi, but they obviously want to hijack the narrative, so they don't call it that. They call it what I think they use the term unified ledgers, because obviously they can't tell all the incumbents that this is actually okay. So they have invented this new thing, which is have the same affordances as distributed technology. And I was just wondering, have you seen that? And if not, maybe
No,
you want to.
I haven't seen that paper. I will research it. Thank you for pointing it out. It's not a surprise. It's the same, like around 2014, 13, 14, 15, the term blockchain emerged. And a lot of early Bitcoiners were like, what is this term? There is no blockchain. It's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a blockchain, you know, and it's a chain of blocks. And I think the reason people use the term blockchain is because they didn't want to be associated with Bitcoin, which is crazy, because without Bitcoin, there wouldn't be a concept of blockchain networks. And I think that might be a very similar political distancing game, as you rightly mentioned.
Yeah, no, I just think it's actually interesting because finally they actually embrace the concept of distributed technology. And I think it's an extraordinary chance to hijack the traditional world here. If we think a little bit more about, accept the fact that there's centralization requirements in the traditional world and a need for control, but maybe there is a possibility to bridge stuff here that is, I guess, unprecedented with a bad word. But I'm just thinking, maybe take a look at it, and maybe we can have a chat in a later session.
Okay.
Okay. We still have questions, but yeah, okay. Tech Rebel, you've raised your hand beforehand, I think. Sorry for missing
thank you. How are you? Well, my name is Alberto from Costa Rica. I'm in Buenos Aires right now, but I want to build a community, so we will be using like an NFT access token and then decentralizing the governance of the community. What's a number for a minimum viable community, like for decentralization? Because I've seen some DAOs get stuck by lack of participation in their governance and in their decision making. And so yeah, do you have to have like the whole complex governance system designed before this, or can you like grow it organically and along the way?
It really depends on what you're creating and the purpose of your system. And obviously, what you will need is a minimum viable economy to be attractive enough for people to be part of the system, right? This is why the concept of airdrops has become so important, to allocate tokens to people who start playing with the system. So you have this minimum viable economy. How many people you would need for that really depends on like what industry are you in, what is the thing you're doing. It's hard to say. There is no blanket number for that. right? But you need momentum. I don't think it's a number rather than something that creates momentum, because momentum will create bigger numbers, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so traction comes from momentum. So the question is, once you have, something like a minimum viable product that can be part of a minimum viable economy, you cannot over-design a system, obviously. You don't want to over-design a system and never start it, but you have to be aware of the fact that initial conditions matter. If you start a system too early, you don't get the flaws of the system. You don't ever get the flaws of the system out. But once you're there and you know that, okay, you've deployed the network or the system, you've tested it with a few people from an economic level or from a technical, at least from a technical level, from a legal level, and then this is where you can start to create some traction, and with marketing, with giving out tokens, really depending on your use case, there are different types of activities.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, I think we covered a lot in this introduction to tokens. Let's close the session for today, but you are all invited to come to the Discord, continue the conversation, share these links that you mentioned. I think these are great resources. Thank you so much for sharing. Henrik, please drop this link. Jan, please drop the links to the Discord. Amazing resources. Let's collect them and make them available even after the session. And we'll meet again with Shermin next week, same time, Friday, 5 p.m. UTC. And again, if you need any information, if you would like to watch the recording again, you'll find the links on the Notion, the information hub. Okay. Thank you so much for today.
Yes, and I think, Angela, you forgot the winners.
Oh my God, yes. Thanks for the reminder.
Yes.
Okay, we had a tiny little competition going on Twitter, and we drawed the winner of one of Shermin's books. So you know that Shermin published Money, NFTs and DeFi, and DAOs and purpose-driven tokens. And the winners are Grayscale G. This is the Twitter name. And Poplin Creation. So in case you are here, please reach out to Caitlin on our Discord. We'll otherwise also DM the winners, and you'll receive further instructions how to receive one of the copies of Shermin's books. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you so
for
much.
the reminder.
And see you next week, and I'll be on Discord at least once in between to maybe answer some questions. Okay, but I'm not there every day.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Yes,
Let's meet on Discord.
Okay, see you on Discord. Bye.
Bye, and see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.